I mentioned that the House passed marriage equality the other day. That's been sent to the Senate. It's the Respect for Marriage Act, and that would codify federal protections for same-sex couples that were put in place in 2015 when the Supreme Court ruled on it. 47 Republicans voted yes in the House, so it passed with some bipartisan support. Now it goes to the Senate. McConnell won't say if he supports it or not, but you already have 4 yeses thus far on the Republican side. Susan Collins, Rob Portman of Ohio, Lisa Murkowski, and Tom Tillis have said that they will support it. So that's 4. But Schumer is basically saying that he's not going to bring it to the floor unless he knows that it's going to pass. Now, he's waffled on that a bit because there's been a lot of pushback, but here was his initial press release on that very topic. It's hard for me to read this here, but if we could just go full screen. He says, I want to say something about the House passed Respect for Marriage Act, which would enshrine marriage equality into federal law, which I fully and strongly support. This legislation is so important. I was really impressed by how much bipartisan support it got in the House. It passed 267 to 157. 47 Republicans, about a quarter, a little less than a quarter of their caucus, maybe a fifth voted for the bill. The legislation is so important. I spoke to Senator Baldwin, who is one of the leaders of this legislation in the Senate this morning, and she is talking to Republicans to see where the support is. I want to bring this bill to the floor, and we're working to get the necessary Senate Republican support to ensure it would pass. So I just want to remind people that the Democrats have tried this tactic many, many times in the past. They have tried to get Republican support before the bill comes to the floor in the Senate to pass the filibuster threshold. They have to get those 60 votes, which is another reminder that this is why we should eliminate the filibuster. But they give Republicans time to breathe on these issues. We saw this with Build Back Better. We saw it with, basically every type of legislation that the Biden administration has tried to pass. You bring it to the floor immediately and don't give them time to get their bearings. Don't give them time to, as a caucus, figure out how strategically they can vote on this, which members are least vulnerable so they can shoot this down, which members can afford to take this vote because they don't have an election coming up anytime soon, which senators need to do this because their home state constituency is in favor of it, because they're in a purple state or in a blue state and they're on the Republican side. Whatever the case may be, you can't give them time to breathe because they'll strategize. That's why McConnell is not being open about his position yet, is because they're trying to figure out a way how to get around this. And McConnell, I mean, they need to be doing this, in my opinion, for all of the cases that Thomas cited in his concurring opinion when they struck down Roe. Now, that goes for Griswold, that goes for Obergefell, which is the gay marriage decision, which is what passing this in the Senate would do. It would nullify it, essentially, codify it into law. But if the Supreme Court decides to take it up, this would be a way to combat that. Lawrence, etc. They should do this for every for every case that Thomas cited there, because what he did in that concurring opinion when they struck down Roe was say to state legislatures, any rights that are not procedural, like the right to a fair trial, or any right that isn't said and enumerated explicitly in the Constitution, explicitly, it's fair game. It's fair game. Labor rights are going to be on the docket as well. And just come to us, come to this extremist Supreme Court, and we will overturn it for you. And so the Democrats have to act with that urgency because Thomas explicitly said what he wants to do in that concurring opinion. And I'm just like flabbergasted that they're going to give Republicans time to breathe on this and collect the votes before they vote on it.
Well, let's be descriptive about it. This is, once again, Chuck Schumer's Senate Democrats being complicit with basically a fascist takeover of the country, like it was with the letting the Supreme Court justices through. Like, we're gonna let Dianne Feinstein nod along, and we're just gonna allow this stuff because, you know, something Senate
procedure, and it's path of least resistance.
And there's just no excuse for it. And I mean, Chuck Schumer may have been soft on this. He needs to cave immediately, and they need to bring it to a vote. This entire, if we're not going to get anything else, it needs to be putting things on the record for where they stand. And it's ridiculous that Chuck Schumer's reaching out. It's ridiculous.
And just a quick point before we go. Ted Cruz over on his podcast a few days ago was like, he thinks Obergefell was wrongfully decided, but his comms guy was literally in every person's mention putting that tweet out there with that video being like, you didn't hear the rest of his quote. He said that he doesn't think the court has an appetite to overturn it. He doesn't think that they will want to do that because there will be so many gay couples who will be in disarray afterwards. Yeah, I'm really, you know what? I'm pretty reassured about that.
Yeah.
Now, actually, you know, now that a Republican senator is qualifying that he doesn't think the Supreme Court might overturn a long-standing precedent, I'm reassured.
They literally did this with abortion. They pretend like, you know, Kavanaugh said it's settled law. He lied. He lied. They all lie, and that's the only way that these extremists can get away with their Christian fascist agenda, is to hide the ball until it's time to strike, and then they do it, and then they naturalize it. And so, like, say it fails. Say it fails. Say it, you get 59 votes, you get 9 Republicans on your side, and marriage equality fails. Then you hit them over the head with it in the midterms.
And people know the urgency of the situation, as opposed to denying it and acting like some fairy tale is going to come together and save us all in the end.
I mean, they just want there to be a cloak of procedure. So one, there also isn't a growing push to eliminate the filibuster in general, which is a way for them to also hide behind doing nothing. The Senate, if it continues to go down this road, needs to go the way of the House of Lords in the UK as a purely rubber stamping or slowing agent in the government. That's because it is not a democratic, it is not a small d democratic institution. It is actively harming this country, and Chuck Schumer, with his commitment to process and also ego, because he wants bills to pass, he wants to check off a win column for himself, is not doing what's in the best interests of the American public with this strategy.
That's the idea. Is I think the squad to get into the bloodstream next. Is we've started delegitimizing the Supreme Court. That's great. Let's start delegitimizing the Senate too.
100%. So it's just, I hope his strategy changes, because pausing and giving Republicans time, it's not going to go well. And I have deep fears about what the next few decades holds in terms of the Supreme Court overturning precedent. And this is the time now, in the wake of Roe, to target those and protect, I should say, the targets of the Supreme Court: gay marriage, contraception, and more. Do it preemptively, because mark my words, they're going to come for it, and Thomas has said as much.